Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm Mark Blake, your host, and joined with me as always is Mr. Brendan Smith.
Good morning, nerds.
And we can hear him today. So
which is a pleasant surprise.
All the technical issues. And joined with us back again is Mr. Alex Moore.
Hello.
And Mr. Chad Womack.
Happy to join you, gents.
Now, I do want to ask a question to Chad before we get started. How many nerd orgasms did you have this week when it was announced there was going to be a new Prince album?
Actually, there's going to be a couple. There are going to be a couple. On Record Store Day, they're going to release The Truth, which was his first acoustic album that he packaged with Crystal Ball back in '97. So that comes out next month. But yes, the month after that, we get hit with Welcome to America, an album that got shelved back when he recorded it for some great. He toured with it, but he didn't release it. But that's Prince. So it
is that before or after or right around the time he went Jehovah?
No, boy, Brendan. At that point, he'd been Jehovah for about 15 years.
Oh, okay. Because I mean that, his writing took a different turn after he went Jehovah's Witness, and
it got really safe.
Hanging out in your house, and somebody comes knocking on your door, and it's Prince.
That did happen. That did happen.
I heard he did do that.
Yes,
so.
yes. He did go door to door and witness somebody while they were watching the Vikings game. They're like, "What the hell?" Yeah.
I've been like live streaming that. I'm like, all right, Prince trying to make me Jehovah's Witness. It ain't happening. But Prince is in my living room.
Prince is in my living room.
I'm going to be able to yell back at Prince, "Stop everything! We're about to party like it's 1999."
And he just gives you that side eye, like, "Really, dude?"
I don't know, but Prince is probably the one Jehovah's Witness that would actually get inside the door. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. So we do want to sincerely apologize to Skynet for making fun of you over the past, shows.
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords.
Yes.
Can't be any worse than our current system of government.
We're actually going to give them a pass.
But please allow us to do a good show today with no technical difficulties. So if an apology is what you need, there you go. All right. We're going to do our show about sympathetic villains in the nerd universe today. We'll get started with that a little bit later, but we've got a few other things that we got to talk about. One quick major announcement, something that I can start to share. We are going to be offering free digital downloads of our new magazine, That Nerd Show Weekly News, starting tomorrow with the latest issue, our 4th issue. That's been kind of a bad luck issue. We've had to redo it and redo artwork for printing and stuff like that. But we've got a great edition for you. It's all fixed. And you get to check out the featured article, Anime for Beginners, 18 great shows for the anime fan in you, written by Chloe James and Clara Ambrazio. But we decided that we want to showcase our magazine for free in a digital issue. You'll be able to download it and also be able to get to check out local advertising in our new classified section. So that will be starting tomorrow, and we'll be coming out with a new issue every 2 weeks and then a special edition every quarter. And our next edition will be delayed one more week. It'll be coming out the first week in May because we want to be able to hit Oscar coverage and list the winners with another featured article talking about Oscar winners who did not deserve to win and Oscar controversies, things that we've complained about over the years, but we want to write about. And we're kind of waiting to see if there'll be an Oscar controversy this year.
Like, for example, when Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring didn't win over some freaking movie nobody had ever heard of, seen, or watched.
I know. Just like when they finally gave it to Return of the King as kind of an apology, there were a lot of great movies that year, and I think better movies that should have won. But now they're here.
It was like a makeup call in hockey.
Yeah,
that was an attaboy for Peter Jackson.
I don't think it was so much for Return of the King; it was for the whole. All three of them, the combined work.
Right, and I get that. I agree.
one
of my biggest arguments that year is you had Master and Commander, you had Mystic River, you had a lot of incredible films that I think were better.
Master and Commander, a movie that sadly did not get as much support as it should have, either at the Oscars or at the box office. because that's based on a whole series of books, and I would have loved to seen all of those brought to screen.
That's right.
Same here.
Sadly, a topic for another day, though.
I know. Well, my little favorite fun fact about that movie, though, Russell Crowe used to pick up rugby games on the beach, and then delayed production like by 4 weeks because he injured his shoulder.
Playing rugby on the set. Holy shit.
But I mean, So anyway, we'll have more news about that. But starting tomorrow, you'll be able to get a free digital download. You can go to our website. But we also encourage you to buy the printed copies because they're special editions and there's a lot of great things in there as well and stuff. But this is for advertisers as well, that we just want to showcase everything that, sponsors and what we're doing and be able to get it out to the people. And just remember, That Nerd Show Weekly actually features more editorials and stuff than you see on our website. So you definitely want to be able to get it and check out more of the things that we're discussing. All right. Real quick, Chad, you have started your podcast, Electric Jellyfish Podcast. Tell us what it's about a little bit, and then we're going to get to this week's Sign of the Apocalypse.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, we launched it it's coming up on a month now. We've done, it's kind of a split personality podcast. It's like a Sybil in the making. We've got one podcast that we feature on Sunday evenings. It drops like midnight on Saturday/Sunday morning, where we talk about relationships and personal life issues and goals and things like that. We've got a great episode coming up this Sunday featuring director Brett A. Hart and his film composer wife, Bonnie, talking about what it took for them to get to where they are today. I don't know, you may or may not have met Brett, Marcus, at the DIF or at the Video Fest several years back. But he's currently got a short film that's making the festival rounds called Coffee with Exes. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about that because we delved into how they built their relationship as a couple and how they were able to strengthen it during the pandemic, which I know was a challenge to a lot of people. And then the Wednesday show, we've recently rebranded it. It was just another episode of the Electric Jellyfish Podcast, but now it's called Spoilers of the Multiverse. So we're basically wrecking any and every pop culture geeky thing that we can get our hands on. We're kind of focusing on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but we've talked about Godzilla versus Kong, Zack Snyder's Justice League. We're touching base on all that stuff. We're going to be gearing up to do a retro gaming podcast at some point. And we're just kind of getting suggestions from the listeners. So the audience is building, the audience is growing, and I cannot thank you enough for supporting us on this, Marcus. Thank you so much for making it happen. You were kind of the doctor of this thing.
Well, Chad and his crew are doing their own thing with this podcast. You can catch them on their own website. But, as a special contributor, like I said, we post episodes that you can listen to from our website as well. So you'll see a combination of things at different events that we are doing throughout the year as we are kind of changing how we do things overall with that Nerd Show and our, little things that everybody does on their own and stuff like that. So anyway, check it out at electricjellyfishpodcast.com or check it out on the website. So.
Yeah, and pretty much any podcast streaming platform that's out there, we're there. All you gotta do is search us.
So, all right. So we actually have two this week's Sign of the Apocalypse. We didn't get to really talk about the one that we wanted to do last week, so we're just going to go ahead and mention it this week. And this is actually, so it's kind of a good thing, bad thing with our two things that we're going to talk about. The first thing is just to talk about how the gaming world is changing. MLB The Show, which has been an exclusive title with Sony PlayStation for going on nearly 20 years now, for the first time ever, is not exclusive. It will be on the Xbox. That was announced last year. But 2 weeks ago, or I'm sorry, about a week ago, Xbox announced that it will now actually be a day one title on Xbox Game Pass, which is even more like out of this world bizarre. Like, can't believe this is happening. And my cousin was asking me who we've played this game for, better part of 15 years since we both still had PlayStation 2s. Did the studio sell out or get bought out? And no, it's still the same studio. Sony CEO basically just said that when it came to licensing, they wanted to be able to get the game out more. So that's why they allowed Xbox to be able to have the game. And then they didn't see it as a viable title for their subscription service, PlayStation Now, compared to what Xbox has been doing. So if you're still debating who's winning the console war, what to buy, and all that, or you're still very much a Sony fanboy versus Xbox, this title coming to Xbox and being on Game Pass is huge. It is like, yeah, it's
But they were saying on ESPN too that it was basically Major League Baseball that mandated this change.
And that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the other thing we're going to get into as well, is getting pushback from Major League Baseball. So thank you for bringing that up, Brendan. But I think that's just another thing where Sony is starting to realize that while they may have had better sales with the PlayStation 5, they don't have the niche in the gaming console market like they used to. And Microsoft and Xbox have taken real steps to, I wouldn't necessarily say be number one, but at least be just as good.
I think they're providing a better value right now.
Yeah, they're strengthening
for your money.
position.
Yeah, and because I don't think either full disclosure, I have yet to purchase a next gen console.
Same.
Because they have yet to release a game that I can't already play on the current gen console,
right?
And wows me to the point of, okay, I need to spend $500.
Yeah, no killer app yet. And there's a killer app on it.
Yeah. So based those things being equal, that neither company has done anything to engender me to buy a system, then I'm definitely playing my Xbox more because of what I get with Game Pass. It's just a better value. The price of Game Pass, you're basically paying, if you buy more than 3 brand new video games a year, which are $60 a piece, then it's a no-brainer to get Games Pass, because that's what it basically costs, is 3 games a year, and you get access to 250 games per year,
give or take.
Yeah,
with a rotating library at that, so it makes it even better.
Yeah,
and library, but more or less EA Play, which we used to be EA Access, so you get all the sports games.
And Jedi Fallen Order and anything else that EA's cranking out. And granted, I've lamented often about how I believe EA stands for eternally awful, but say la vie, it's still games. They were voted. Let's put this into perspective here. They were voted the worst company in America 3 years in a row over Halliburton.
That's bad. That's bad.
We've got companies that, private military companies that were basically guilty of war crimes. Nope, EA's worse.
Shit.
So let that sink in for a moment. Let it marinate.
Wow.
And, so when I tell you that the only way I will ever play EA games is if I get them for free, and I'm not giving my money to EA, I'm giving it to Microsoft. So I'm cool with that.
Well, when it comes to gaming tournaments, we've pretty much just gone strictly to Xbox at this point, because there isn't any reason to have a PlayStation and subscribe to everything that they do when we get more with Xbox.
A PlayStation really has to take a look at what Xbox is doing and kind of shift their paradigm.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get left behind. And I've been a Sony guy for 20 years. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a little.
And a couple of years ago, that was from a gaming standpoint, we started to make the shift, right? I made sure that everybody had an Xbox, and we've done more and more with Xbox than we have with PlayStation. PlayStation will always win with their exclusive titles. They have really great exclusive titles, especially with Naughty Dog and stuff like that. There's no denying that. But the value of what you can get in gaming, I've told so many people this year, it's like, I wouldn't run out and buy the PlayStation 5 right now. If you're going to spend the $500, get the Xbox because it is a better system, from a hardware standpoint. And with Game Pass and everything that you get and the deals that they always have in the Microsoft store, you get more. And usually if a game goes off of Game Pass, because I noticed this with Tekken 7, which we use for tournaments, it disappeared. But then they had this great sale where I was able to get multiple copies for like $7 each, that kind of thing. So anyway, it is a sign of the apocalypse. It's a real cool that this is happening. And I didn't buy last year's version of MLB because they didn't do enough to it compared to 19. And I wasn't really going to buy this year, even though because I didn't feel like they had done enough to the game to warrant spending $60, during a pandemic. But I am very, very excited for April 20th when it will be available on Xbox Game Pass, and I can't wait to start my new season.
Yeah, I agree, Marcus, because I mean, buying sports games in general, talking about shifting paradigms, I think companies like EA and who does MLB the shows at 989 Sports or
I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I've just had terrible allergies driving me nuts. I apologize. But I really think they need to look at, releasing, because it's only once, twice a console generation that sports games make a real leap forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think what they need to do is like, okay, say this year is the big leap. All right. Okay. You charge full price this year, but for the next 2 years, while you're developing the next big game that's going to take 3 years, all you release are like minor graphical updates and maybe a new game mode. And then if there's a new stadium, you put in the new stadium, if they're like with Texas Rangers this year, and the new rosters, and you charge $15-$20 for that update.
Yeah.
And then in another 3 years, okay, now you jump another, and if you wanted to do it where you charge $70-$80 for that game, I'd probably be fine with it because I know I'm only getting it once every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Or put a season pass into it where it's like, they do $120, but you get the game and all of the downloads for the next 3 years, and then the next game will come out.
Look, FIFA is the largest selling sports game in the world, and it's great for really truly for the value that you get. You get to play every team in every soccer league throughout the world and World Cup and stuff like that. And with them getting the Champions League license back, it made it even better. But the only thing they really update are uniforms, stadiums.
Sometimes not that, because not even that, because if you, and this is Madden now, not FIFA, but I'm sure it's in FIFA as well. If you open up Madden 20 and you hit instant replay on one of your plays and you look at the upper deck, on the facade of the upper deck, it still says Madden 19.
Yeah.
So, shit. Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, and the Super Bowl celebration hasn't changed in from 2016 through 2020. I don't know if they changed in 2021, but it was like the same Super Bowl celebration for like 4 years.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a real coup, and we're excited to be able to review it and talk about it coming to Game Pass and stuff like that.
And let's face it, free, gentlemen, is our favorite 4-letter F word.
Exactly.
Speak for yourself, Brendan.
So. All right.
Hey, I got love for the other ones too. Just free's my favorite.
So here is a great story that was actually this week's Sign of the Apocalypse, which we just had to laugh at. So let me set up the story here. It's about an actor who created a Ponzi scheme. It's about a failed actor who created a Ponzi scheme. So hear me out.
Ironically, now is probably going to have a movie made about him.
Exactly. So actor Zachary Avey, which is his professional name, basically TV roles here and there. You've never heard of him. Hasn't really done much. Hasn't garnered any attention. Again, kind of not even really a working actor, just kind of a failed actor. So he basically set up a company and jilted investors and raised $227 million for film projects by convincing them that he had, film rights and licenses to platforms like Netflix, HBO, and stuff like that. Anyway, and distribute, and of course agreed to distribute abroad, particularly in Latin America. The actor provided promotional materials to investors that claimed all this was happening. He also provided investors with a fake license. The funds were instead were used to repay previous investors and to bankroll Horowitz's lifestyle, including the purchase of a $6 million Beverlywood residence, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I just want to point this out. He wasn't a good enough actor for the stuff that he was auditioning for. He didn't think he was good enough, but he's a good enough actor
to bullshit his way.
To fun projects.
It gets even better. The BBC is now reporting that the actual number was 690 million.
Yeah.
He actually got more. I think the 227 is what they've actually been able to get back.
What this was recuperated?
So he spent like $400 million. Good for him.
Right. Part of what he did is he used this money to repay previous investors for failed projects. Okay. Which, by the way, is a legal practice in Hollywood. You get other money from investors for future projects to also repay for debt on past projects. Jesus. So it's legal. It's totally legal in Hollywood to do that. But when a guy...
Is it ethical? No. But for some reason, it's legal. Is it ethical or moral? Not at all.
Yeah. Anywhere else would be illegal. But in Hollywood, of course we could do that.
That's Tuesday.
Right. Now, did the guy clearly lie about his licensing deals with Netflix and HBO and distribution? Sure.
Yep.
Who hasn't?
He's about to be in a movie with Frank Grillo, Olivia Munn, and Keith David.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he does kind of like these B action movies and stuff, but he's just, never lived up, I guess, to his full potential. But he is definitely living the Hollywood lifestyle. So here's what I want to point out. Does everybody remember the movie Molly Bloom with Jessica Chastain, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin? I feel like Aaron Sorkin should do this movie in the vein of Matchstick Men, with Nicolas Cage,
or Catch Me If You Can,
or Catch Me If You Can, and let this be kind of a quasi sequel to like the Molly Bloom movie about how one actor got back in Hollywood through a Ponzi scheme. He may serve jail time. Okay.
But what a ride.
Right. What a ride. And the film rights. He will eventually, once he's out of jail, get to walk the red carpet as an A-list star.
So instead of the Wolf of Wall Street, he's like the Rat of Rodeo Drive and shit.
But yeah,
the Trash Panda of Beverly Hills.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist talking about this story because, again, it's just the first article I wrote or read was written like a failed actor who couldn't get ahead in Hollywood grifted investors.
Hey, this
my
guy
jaw hit the floor. I was like, damn.
I applaud this guy for a couple reasons. One, he didn't want to be Poe anymore, and he made a way so he won't Poe.
Exactly.
Number two, he stole a lot more money than the dude from 9 Band Brewing in Allen, Texas, and managed not to kill anybody. So, he's got that going for him, which is nice.
Right. And I mean, it's not like he ripped off poor people.
He's ripping off Hollywood.
Yeah, he ripped off Hollywood.
He had it coming.
Yeah, the only thing, here's what I would do, though. This is the only thing I would say to Zach Avery. And yes, we do want to interview him one day. If they haven't gotten back all the money and there's still money out there, before you go to jail, do one nice thing. Be like a Robin Hood of Hollywood. Give that money away to fund independent projects for the indie filmmakers that struggle to raise money for their projects.
Yeah, my wife and I could use a house too while you're at it. Nothing too grandiose, like $300,000 in Lewisville, Texas. We'd be all set.
I'll take a tiny house.
Right.
Take a container house.
And we'll give you a customized advertising project to talk about how you should be free Zach Avery. We'll start that movement.
Hashtag free Zach Avery.
Free Zach Avery, yeah. I'll put that on the Electric Jellyfish podcast.
Right. We are not above taking your money for advertising to get that. Help us stay profitable.
Never.
But
Never.
anyway, kudos to you. You may spend time in jail, Zach Avery, but you proved you were a good enough actor to get money out of investors. Anyway, all right. We're going to get to the topic of the day. We're going to be talking about sympathetic villains. And Brendan, this show was your brainchild when you recommended it to me a while back. So tell us about.
It was pandemic time, so it felt like a decade ago.
And you've drinking a lot more of your beer since then that you make it crap and crap.
True.
So tell us a little. Again, the brainchild behind this topic and the difference between what you consider a sympathetic villain versus an anti-hero.
All right. So for me, a sympathetic villain is somebody who's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, where an anti-hero is somebody who's doing the right thing, but the wrong way. So that's kind of that's my personal little yin yang dichotomy of those two. So like the Punisher, he's an anti-hero. He's punishing criminals, but he goes about it the wrong way because you could have collateral damage. You could have, sympathetic villains are villains like you feel sorry for because you know how they got to that point, because maybe for one or two different turns in your life you could be right there. So for me, like in the first one I want to talk about, and it probably he's not my favorite sympathetic villain of all time. And I'm sure one of you will bring that character up, but I'll leave that for you guys. But he's really the one that inspired this topic, is Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of Kingpin in the Netflix Daredevil and other shows.
Absolutely.
Because he everything he does is driven out of a desire to make his city better.
Right.
But he goes about it in the wrong. He wants to do the right thing, but he does all the wrong things. Like he's so screwed up, whether that's nurture or nature, it really doesn't matter. It's just he just can't put his massive intellect to use in the right way, and so everything gets screwed up. And in a desire to make things better, all he's doing is making things worse. And he has to be stopped, but you feel bad for him because the guy, obviously he's not a sociopath, right? He doesn't lack empathy. He desperately loves the woman that he marries. He loves the city, but he also hates a lot of the people in it. So, and look, come on, I get angry at Starbucks in line when people don't freaking look at the damn menu for the 10 minutes they're waiting in line before they get to the counter. Like, do you have slushies? No, they don't have slushies. It's Starbucks. They got hot coffee, cold coffee, and frozen coffee. Pick one, get out of the line.
Well, frozen coffee's close enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, this ain't Jamba Juice. You ain't getting a mango
We really
papaya
should have a
smoothie.
live. If you haven't made up your mind yet, you go over here. You can wander around aimlessly, look around, and
So-
I don't know what
That's
I
northern
want.
thinking versus southern thinking, maybe a little bit too, I guess.
No, it's
Express
because
line versus
that's
dipshit line.
no, because that's everywhere. Because that happened. I grew up in the North. People did that shit. You stand in line for 30 minutes at McDonald's and they don't know what the hell they want. Like, they've got pictures. Just look at it and point. Go,
You look at it first time ever? Really? Seriously?
It's like, it's McDonald's. It's the same shit they've had since I was 6 years old. You want a Big Mac, a cheeseburger, a double cheeseburger, a quarter pounder with cheese? Pick one. Get out of the line.
Arch Deluxe.
So,
Arch Deluxe. May it rest in peace.
yeah. So like I understand, like I empathize with Kingpin because Like, he looks around and sees a whole bunch of idiots ruining his city. And trust me, I empathize. I just don't employ 5 different crime families from different parts of Europe to, take care of them.
Well,
No,
I
Don
also think
Corleone on them.
I think that's the brilliance of the writing too, is that it isn't strictly, black and white. Okay, that there's reasons of why they do what they do. I mean, if you look at Mr. Freeze from one of Batman's villains, I mean, everything he's doing is trying to cure his terminally ill wife. Okay, and then he becomes Mr. Freeze, and that's his one single goal more than anything else in the world. But everything he does, he goes about the wrong way, trying to rescue the love of his life. So, is he bad? Yes. I mean, could he do things differently? Absolutely. But if you understand why he's doing what he's doing, he's not the Joker, which just wants to see everything burn for the fun of it. Although I do, when we did our little thing for the Killing Joke years ago, we got to do that little screening. I thoroughly enjoyed that, version of it, in kind of looking at that backstory and like understanding what made him into the Joker, or at least.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing with the Killing Joke and the Joker. I don't believe that backstory for a second, because the Joker is such a psychopath. He knows he can emulate emotion, but not actually, feel it. So I'm thinking that's using to manipulate the crowd, and specifically to manipulate Batman into feeling sorry for him.
Well, but that's my point is that story makes him a sympathetic villain if it were true.
Even if it's not,
yeah. How do you know
that for a second? Oh, real? No,
right.
No, he's still the Joker. He's still an asshole.
But I don't think you're going to feel any kind of sympathy for the Joker. But he's such, a psychopath, because his origin story always changes. And like you said, he's just playing on people's emotions, trying to make them feel empathy for him when
he's trying to get them just a little off balance so he can take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
Alex, what about you? Talking about sympathetic villains, because you look at things a little bit different as kind of the classic nerd and some of the people that we've talked about over the years. But what is one of your favorite sympathetic villains?
I tried to just kind of go down to the list and kind of look at all the movies that I can recall and sort of think about it, because I was thinking about sort of what we alluded to before about anti-hero versus sympathetic villain. Because it's pretty complex. And I even thought of some examples where there isn't a clear-cut antagonist in a story. You just kind of have the protagonist, but, it's almost like the antagonist is sort of within the protagonist. So it's sort of like you have the hero and the villain in the same character, which I guess is what an anti-hero kind of is. So, but I kind of went back to the first time I watched Blade Runner. And, you have these replicants, and this is clearly, the antagonist, when you consider who the protagonist is in the story. And yet I still remember the first time I watched that movie, how sad I felt when Zora is being hunted down in the streets, and sort of that emotional kind of uncomfortable situation that you're looking at. And that's kind of a very early example I can think of where I really felt some sympathy for who was supposed to be the villain in the story.
Right. I don't think. See, I never thought the replicants, were bad. I mean, they're dealing with an impossible situation. They only have so long to live. Society has cast them aside after they've been created, and trying to basically going to their maker and seeing what they can do. And, it's like, what do you do when society looks down on you and they don't want to acknowledge the creation, like the Frankenstein monster? Nobody wants to acknowledge the creation that was made. So, I mean, and I love, when Roy dies at the end of that movie, and the thing, and, his little epilogue and stuff like that, so, I mean, is he really a villain, or just, misunderstood?
Well, I think that's what makes him sympathetic, is that we have feelings for what they're going through. But if the villain, classically speaking, the villain is the opposition to the hero, and Deckard is the hero, so to speak, in that story. So to me, from a classical perspective, these are the villains, even if we may not necessarily see them as villainous, but I think that's what makes them easy for us to sympathize with. So,
right. Well, and to take your point about Blade Runner, if you look at Blade Runner 2049, which I still consider just a monumental movie. I mean, it's one of the few movies I gave a perfect 10 to because I couldn't really find anything wrong with it. Loved everything about it. But Robin Wright's character, Lieutenant Joshi, you understand. I mean, she's a villainous bitch in this movie. Okay, her motives are kind of evil, but you understand why. You understand that she is trying to protect the fabric of society, because you can't. And if you haven't seen Blade Runner 2049, just a little bit of a spoiler, sorry, but she is trying to protect society from the fact that replicants can reproduce. That changes. She's trying to protect what she envisions her society should be. Okay, it's a danger, it's a threat. So you understand her motives and what she is doing. But at the same time, I do look at her as kind of a villain, because it's not, we don't want to understand, or we don't want to accept them, that kind of stuff. But I want to protect what is mine and, stuff. So I understand that, even though I may disagree with her motives and what she is trying to do, especially, and I always love the irony too. It's like you're getting a replicant to hunt down other replicants. So I mean, but anyway, I kind of looked at that as just another, a take off Blade Runner, and looking at the villains and stuff. But let me ask you a quick question, because we do love the Blade Runner. Do you feel like that there is any true villain in that movie, Alex? Like, absolute, we don't debate that they are true villains.
Well, I mean, I think nowadays with storytelling, we like to have lots of layers and depth to characters. And so the more you get to know characters, the less you think of them as being a wholly evil or wholly good. So the original film, when it came out, it doesn't have the same kind of depth of storytelling that we see today. But I think because we've had a lot of time to think about it and look at it, I would still say from a classical perspective, yes, we do have clear heroes and villains in the story, but sort of what you're saying, I mean, I guess it kind of comes down to perspective. And so if you find yourself kind of on the side of the so-called villains, you may not see them as villains. You may see them as the heroes, or see the hero as the villain. I remember from when I watched E.T. as a kid, it's totally different from seeing E.T. as an adult, because as an adult, you see from the parent's perspective, from the scientist's perspective, and you realize that they're just interested in this being from another planet, and they don't have any animus toward him. They just want to find out who he is, because it's sort of like what they've been waiting for this moment their whole lives. But as a kid, I was totally ingrained with the child relationship with the alien ET, and I saw those scientists just being bad. It's like they're getting in the way of what these two people are trying to do, the alien and the kid. Right. And so as a kid, I thought those were like the villains in the story. But then as an adult, it's like, well, they're not really villains. They're just they're really just like a grown version of the kid almost. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll give you my answer on the original Blade Runner movie. I think if there is a true villain, it's probably got to be Tyrell himself, who, wanted to make slaves for society and get rich off of it, and didn't care about if they evolve or ask questions or anything like that. He looked at them as commodities more than anything else, and built in that safe mechanism where they were going to die after a few years, and kind of balked at the idea that they would evolve and ask questions of a being evolving, about their own existence. So he's probably, and then of course the Jared Leto character in Blade Runner 2049 could probably be considered an actual villain that doesn't deserve any sympathy. So anyway,
I have a slightly different answer on that topic.
Sure.
On who's the villain in Blade Runner. To me, it's society. because what you're doing is society has just put Deckard in an impossible position of having to hunt down these people, for lack of a better term, and completely cast off these people, even though they have become self-aware and they are, they're once at that point, once you have that self-awareness, then you're a living being. And so you're just like casting these people off and just destroying them. And that's okay with everybody else. Everybody else in the movie is just, going about their lives in the background while this is all being allowed to play out in their society. So imagine if, for us, it was, let's say, just to put it in perspective, the people who are come across the border illegally and there are these ICE camps. Well, what if we just killed them all?
Yeah.
Because they're not us. They don't affect us, so, however you feel about what's going on down there right now, at least as a society, we recognize these are human beings and need to be treated better than we're currently treating them. So, we're not the villain in this case, but in Blade Runner, everybody's just accepted that it's okay to just put a bullet in one of these things and call it a day. Go have lunch.
Because empathy is gone. There is no empathy.
Right. So I think it's really a warning about society, about, to make sure we don't look at somebody that's different to be less valuable or less worthy.
Yeah. I know. I think we, just need to play over and over that quote from Spock. When they ask him, "Is that the right thing to do?" No, but it's the human thing.
The human thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, right on, Brendan. I mean, you can make that argument that it is just society as a whole, and society does suck. Now
that character that created the replicants, I mean, he's basically the focal point for society. Like, he's the representation of society.
He's a manifestation of society as a whole.
But which brings me, I mean, if you look at society as a whole as being a villain, then I think you have to look at Thanos as being kind of a sympathetic villain, because how many of us last year, especially during a political cycle, when you're online, were just like, people suck. Thanos, right. If I had it, I just give me that one chance to wipe half of you motherfuckers out because you're idiots.
The biggest problem Thanos had with his was completely indiscriminate.
Yeah.
So you probably still are left with the same statistical amount of morons among the half that are left in the universe.
I know. But I'm just saying, if you had that one weapon, just like, idiot. Guy who can't make up his mind in a Starbucks line, idiot. Stab the food right. Chad, how about you? What's one of your favorite sympathetic villains?
I'm gonna go for. I'm sorry, it's gonna be the obvious choice, especially from me. If anyone that knows me, that knows anything about me, knows that a long time ago. Yes, that's foreshadowing. I was completely
far away.
Yes, I was completely captivated by this black helmeted, black cloaked figure that strode through some blast doors in 1977, thinking that is the coolest son of a bitch I've ever seen in my life. I know I should.
I told you somebody was going to talk about him.
Of course,
at the very beginning, I told you somebody was going to talk about him.
I had to. I mean, because Star Wars is what made me fall in love with movies in the first place. I mean, Jaws got me hooked. Sorry for the bad pun. And King Kong and King Kong from 33 also did a number on me, because it's what kind of fascinated me with the process. But as far as storytelling and seeing a character and watching their arc go from one extreme to the other and then circle back again, is completely fascinating to me. And to do a character study on Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader and see where he began, where he went, and how it wound up playing out at the end of it all is, to me, one of the most fascinating character studies in the history of cinema. And I know that I'm wearing my fanboy heart on my sleeve, heart and heavy. I've got so much Darth Vader shit in my closet and all around this room. Every room in this house has something indicating Star Wars on it. For Christ's sakes, my wife and I got married on May the 4th just for that reason, if that tells you anything.
Well, I mean, I can't be as gung ho. I don't have anything of Darth Vader in my office.
No, nothing at all over your shoulder on top of that. Oh, he's crept into pretty much all of our lives that are having this conversation right now. He's a huge part of why we became geeks in the first place. And there you go, Brendan. There you go. I started to grab the bobblehead right over here. I've got a piggy bank right over here. I mean, he's all over the room.
That's the Black Series 3.5 inch. I've also got the 6 inch, but that one never came out of the box.
so yeah, we're all. I mean, I know that it. Yeah, it was the painfully obvious choice for me. There are other choices that went through my head as far as, who I think might be the personification of this conversation, but Vader to me has always been the guy that, Jesus, can you blame him for freaking out the way he did? Because he's a guy that was given everything he ever wanted, but everything he ever loved was taken from him in the most tragic way possible. Particularly the woman that he loved the most, he wound up killing her.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even so much that he was out to kill her. It's just that when he snapped, shit goes bad. And she was, as we were saying earlier, collateral damage of that rage that was fed to him by the guy that was, quote unquote, giving him everything he ever wanted.
Not to mention his mother, it was murdered, and his his would have been father figure was murdered right in front of him, or not right in front of him, but right after he meets him,
Yeah.
If there's a Jedi with some serious PSTD,
no shit.
But I will say this about looking at the Skywalker saga. Whether you like what Disney did with its trilogy, and we've had our fair share of complaints and debated it and all that, at least there has they've always pointed out to who the true villain really was of that saga, and it was always the Emperor. It was because as bad as Darth Vader is, there's a redemption story there more than anything else that makes him sympathetic. But yeah, he does a lot of bad shit, and sometimes it's very cool to see him do a lot of bad. Like at Rogue One, where
the hallway scene will always stick in my head. That's him going full Jason on a camp counselor meeting.
I swear to God, when they were writing the season finale of The Mandalorian, and they were like, how are we going to do this? Somebody was just watching Rogue One and that scene. Got it.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to make Luke do.
Personally. So I'm really hoping that in the Obi-Wan scene, in the Obi-Wan show, we get more of Order 66, either through flashbacks or dream sequence with Obi-Wan. And you actually, because they just hint at what Anakin did in the temple. But I want to see Anakin going full on, like just destroying Sindralig, the weapons master of the Jedi Order, and just being full Darth Vader, to what his potential was. Because George has always talked about how Obi-Wan left him literally like 70% of the man he was. Like he only had about 70 to 80% of the power that he did when he was fully human. So I wanted to see Darth Vader at his peak going through the entire Jedi Order like it was tissue paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it also creates the Youngling Slayer 9000, but
yeah,
could be fun.
Yeah, I'm very glad that they're bringing Hayden Christensen back. I think I'm not saying Hayden Christensen is a bad actor. I mean, he's not a great actor, and I'm not saying he doesn't have his fair share of problems, but I think a lot of what he suffered from too is terrible dialogue,
bad script.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of these things where I've enjoyed him in other things. Like I enjoyed him in that Jumper movie.
I did too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a great movie. Samuel L. Jackson was a little over the top at points in that movie, but at the same time,
Samuel L. Jackson. Also,
you can't. I'm just saying you can't completely fault him for the prequels.
And I don't think anybody does either. I do feel bad because I just wish there's so many I really enjoy the prequels, but there's so many small tweaks that could have been made to make them truly great. Like, like to me with the sequels, they're like, you'd have to do a major overhaul of those to change them in my mind. But the prequels are just little tweaks here and there. And if George just had somebody who could write romantic dialogue that didn't make it sound like Twilight fan fiction,
Or
that'd have been great.
Or this is what a stalker says.
Yeah.
Maybe you needed Irving Kershner, you know? I mean,
I know.
Yeah, right. You know, I mean, anybody just, I don't know, like, hey, run it. You're best friends with Steven Spielberg. Maybe reach out. Just saying.
What did Carrie say all those years ago? George, you can write
can you
this shit, but
imagine?
you can't say it.
Spielberg Star Wars
right.
involvement? I mean, that would be amazing.
But the fact that
Yeah.
But the fact that he's getting to come back and be a part of this series, I mean, even if you're not really going to see him, I think that's fantastic. And as for major overhauls of the the Disney trilogy, I think we will eventually get those. I mean, if the Snyder Cut has proven anything, you can go back and have a director's vision, and
fans can get what they want.
Right.
We're I think we're proving that, and hopefully, I mean, even it's gotten to the point now where The Rock is like, yeah, there needs to be a Man of Steel 2, and if y'all don't do it, I'm just going to straight up produce it myself.
Right. Exactly. So, so here is my favorite sympathetic villain, especially over the last decade, and I say decade because it is been 10 years tomorrow since Game of Thrones premiered on HBO. I have always felt Jaime Lannister was really the most sympathetic villain. You started out hating him so much, but there's this one moment where you start to understand why he is the way he is. Okay. First of all, he's only ever loved one woman. Was she a psychopathic bitch? Yes. So you can't really fault him for that. And then again, I don't really completely blame Cersei and, everything that she did to protect her family and her way of life and stuff like that. But I always felt like Jaime Lannister had the biggest transformation of any character, from going from absolutely hated to you died a true hero. Should you have gone back to King's Landing? No, you should have stayed and hung out with, Brianna, let her be the new love of your life, that kind of thing. But in season 3, once he, kind of gets her back and, they end up in the bath together and stuff, and he starts talking about honor and, duty and why he killed the king. When the king was burning people alive and tossing babies off the roof and just, being a psychopath. Asking her, what would you have done then in the name of your honor? And he basically shows that I think he has the moral turpitude of a true knight. But
even though he's banging his sister.
You know what? Again, I mean, we act like, oh my God, they're sleeping together. Like, well, first of all, royals have been doing that.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean,
doesn't make it any less gross, though. I mean, I know
the European tree of nobility is more like a shrubbery.
It's more like a pole than a friggin' branches.
Yeah. I mean, it's very diluted. We've got to keep it pure, and we've had those common themes about keeping pure bloodlines. Harry Potter pretty much has that. I mean, it's. But anyway, I just feel like he is the most sympathetic villain in Game of Thrones. There isn't anybody. I mean, you have sympathies for other villains. You have sympathy for the Hound, okay? And I do love the Hound. And I love the adventures that he, when he was traveling with Arya. But Jaime Lannister just really is the truest sympathetic villain in Game of Thrones. You hated him, but then you kind of love him in the end. And I think the greatest, fitting for his story is when Brianna is writing his tale and filling out those pages at the very end.
Yeah.
You may disagree with his choices, like going back for his sister, but he went back for the woman that he loved and tried to rescue her. And you can't blame a guy for that, even though she did deserve to die in a much crueler way than she did. But still. So, the other thing I want to point out is if he was such a bad villain, I love the scene in season 7 when Lady Martell gives her the option of the poison instead of like, what Cersei wanted to do. And he's like, no, she knows she's defeated. We give her the option. She says her piece and that's it. He was a true knight in a lot of ways. So like I said, that's my favorite sympathetic villain, at least in the last decade, since we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the release of Game of Thrones. So, and I'm gonna segue into this. Alex, I was thinking about this because I was updating a podcast on our website, and your Johnny Utah to the replacements from that topic that we were doing. Bodhi, isn't he not a sympathetic villain? Yes, he robbed banks, but
yes,
how do you not feel for his philosophy on life and what he's really trying to do? I mean, is he really that bad of a guy?
Right.
Did he even make the argument that he's a bad guy and belongs in prison?
No, I completely agree. And I guess when I was going down the list and just kind of thinking about movies, somehow I skipped over that one. Kind of shocking now when you bring it up, but that's absolutely a great example of a sympathetic villain, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you have two different people. You have two people with very different philosophies on life. One of law and order, this is the way we need to do things. One that I'm not going to be stranglehold by society, okay? And we're not robbing from people who can't afford it. We're robbing from banks where money's federally insured and funding our way of life. And, nobody gets hurt. And it was only when law enforcement interfered with that somebody ended up getting killed, and then all hell broke loose. I mean, you can kind of blame, well, you can't really blame Keanu Reeves. It was the off-duty cop who decided to try and be a hero and all that. But at the same time, it's like I'm not saying you should go out and rob banks to fund your lifestyle. In fact, you should, create a Ponzi scheme in Hollywood and get investors.
Call it the Bodhi.
Nice. That's a callback. That's a good callback.
Right. There's a much better way of doing it when you're a failed actor.
So would you say is that your runner-up for a sympathetic villain?
If we have a Nerd Show Hall of Fame, I think Zach Avery is going to be in it.
He's going to be enshrined on the wall.
Or Hall of Shame, maybe.
Shame. There you go. Yeah.
Kudos to you, sir. Anyway, but yeah, I was thinking about his character being a great sympathetic villain. So, but Alex, or I'm sorry, let me get back to Brendan. Brendan, who's another sympathetic villain for you?
Oh, we talked Mr. Freeze. We talked Vader. We talked. Yeah, let's see. Oh, here we go. How about a young man named Eric Lyncher?
Yes.
Nice.
Magneto.
Absolutely.
Holocaust survivor, and all he's trying to do, he sees a second Holocaust coming with humans versus mutants, and he lashes out, and the only way he knows how, because that's what happened to him. So, it like, you understand 100% where you're coming from, but it's like, dude, at the same time, you need to dial it back. Like, bring it back. Like, I get it.
I always thought him and Charles were like the yin and yang.
Oh yeah, very much so.
They really
point, yeah.
They needed each other and to somehow kind of meet in the middle. So them playing chess together, and while Xavier was always going to come and visit him and all that, is that way of, I'm not writing you off, but I also understand the point you're trying to make. Also, in the movie First Class, when he shows up at the little Bavarian bar in South America with Nazis in hiding and has a beer with them, and then just uses his power to stab them. That was one of my all-time favorite scenes. And I love Michael Fassbender. By the way,
that was the scene that James Bond, but I mean,
I was about to say that's another shining example of how he would have been a great James Bond. Just cool and all that. But yeah, Magneto's a great one. So, sorry, losing my train of thought here. That's not really good on a podcast.
That's all right. It just kind of dives into this meme I just saw. It was this one's like, I got up and I did Zumba, and then I did yoga, and then I rode a bike, and I feel great. Well, thanks for that, Donna. I'm stirring my coffee with a piece of bacon, and I feel pretty fucking good too.
I've never thought about. That's a good idea.
Write that shit down.
I enjoy coffee better for bacon.
I'll do it.
I think
I'll try.
Bacon flavored coffee. I think we just stumbled onto something, boys.
I think you have, sir.
Oh, Starbucks. This is our new idea.
All right, so here's a question. I know it's like two different time periods, but whose version of Magneto do you like better, Michael Fassbender or Ian McKellen?
Boy.
I know. You get
You bastard.
two great actors to play Magneto, and it's like.
I'll say this, and I hate saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to say Michael Fassbender, but only because all throughout the comics and the original run of the X-Men movies, you've always seen Magneto as an older gentleman, right?
Yeah,
right.
And to see him in his prime, you know, to be able to, I mean, maybe not his mental prime, but his physical prime, to be able to just see him as a young,
Right.
you know, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, well, it's full of life, a very, you know, just active man going and just being that guy and being that badass, you know, because he's more of a leader when it's, you know, he's more of the fatherly leader. I mean, he's still a badass, but
Right.
it's just a different character. So, and we've always seen that character, and it's a great character, but to see it just a little bit different in how he got to there, I think to me that was a little bit more gratifying and fulfilling to watch, rather than, and I always had that hard time of detaching the fact that Ian McKellen is also Gandalf.
Right.
And so I'm like, I can't see Gandalf the White like trying to rip the adamantium off Wolverine's bones. That just it was difficult for me. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit of a klept, you know.
I'll say this: I don't think there's any doubt that Patrick Stewart is the better actor to play Charles Xavier. I mean, nothing against James McAvoy. I do love him as an actor, but it's Patrick Stewart. I'm sorry, you're just not going to.
Well, it's. I mean, it's. But in that case, who's his previous famous character? Jean-Luc Picard. Well,
Right.
you're. It's real easy to see Jean-Luc Picard being Professor Xavier. It's real difficult to see Gandalf being Magneto.
Right. So I agree with you about Michael Fassbender, and I'm going to recommend an Irish movie. It is very, very hard to watch, but it's like Schindler's List where you have to watch it to appreciate it. And it's the one that Michael Fassbender did called Hunger back in 2008 with Steve McQueen, who did like 12 Years a Slave and stuff like that. Is it Steve McQueen or McGee? I tend to get them confused. Anyway, it's the one where he is playing Bobby Sands during his
Hunger strike.
Yeah, his hunger strike in Ireland. But most of the movie is really about what the Irish prisoners went through and all that, and you don't even really see Michael Fassbender until about 20 minutes into the film. Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve McQueen. It is
Steve McQueen. Yeah, I just looked up too.
So, if you want to see some of the most brilliant acting and performance, it is the one long 17-minute long take of Michael Fassbender and Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
Davos Seaworth.
Yeah, who plays. Anyway, it's about Bobby Sands having his last meeting with the priest, and talking about the cause, why he's doing what he's doing. I'm not kidding. They did this in one long 17-minute take. Okay. And that one scene sums up everything about that struggle, about why he is willing to do this. Okay. The priest trying to be sympathetic, he's trying to show don't starve yourself, but he understands the cause, that kind of thing. And interesting fact about that scene, this is a little known movie. I mean, outside of people who watch like Irish movies are about, the troubles and stuff, this was actually Steve McQueen's very first directorial debut, or movie that he ever directed.
He co-wrote it as well.
Yeah, Liam and Michael Fassbender actually roomed together during that production and would literally practice that scene like 5 times a day.
Jesus. Like
over and over and over. But as much as I love, Ian McClellan and in the stuff that he has done, and he's done some incredible movies. I look at that one single scene, that piece of acting in that entire movie where Michael Fassbender did starve himself and they had to have doctors on set, and he, went to the hospital like a couple of times. He lost so much weight to showcase that, and it was to be, and then they wanted it to show the importance of what Bobby Sands, did. When the Brits were like, we don't care, especially Margaret Thatcher, they're all terrorists. But that alone makes Michael Fassbender one of the greatest actors for me. And for every actor out there that that looks at scenes that brings out the emotion, the epitome of an acting ability, that right there is right up there at the top of the list for me. So I agree with you on that. So, Chad, have another sympathetic villain for you.
How many more are we going to get? Because if this is my last one, we have to combine 2 into 1.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Oldman's portrayal of the Count in Coppola's Dracula in 92.
Okay.
Made me understand Vlad's reason for doing what he's doing. I'd never shed a tear over a Dracula film until then. When they get to the end of that story, my heart was broken for Dracula. I had never felt any kind of sympathy for Dracula, even though we kind of knew why he was doing what he's doing, but it really wasn't established all that well. It was just blah, blah, blah for our entire lives. And then we see Gary do what he did. To me, when someone mentions Dracula, I don't see Bella anymore. I see Gary Oldman.
Right.
That became kind of like the way.
And you see different versions of Gary Oldman.
Yeah, with the butt, I don't like the butthead hair at the beginning, but what like anytime someone mentions Dracula to me, I see him in that tailored suit with the top hat, following Winona Ryder through the streets
and the smoked blue glasses.
Yes. To me, that shot of him just baring his fangs, getting ready to feast on her and shit is like, that is Dracula. And when you see, what Elisabetta did and how, the church said, well, she's damned to hell. And he was like, well, screw that. And he just goes freaking, into beast mode, literally. And you totally get why he did what he did his whole life. And, it was just to get back to her. That was the only reason he existed. And just when you see that arc finish its story, it's just so heartbreaking to me. I remember just walking out as Annie Lennox's love song for a vampire was playing as the credits were rolling, and I'm like, why am I crying? Why the hell am I crying? Why am I shedding tears over Dracula? Because I'd never had done that before. So that one and Koba from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Was so, I mean, you really can't blame this ape for feeling the way that he felt, of being just tormented and tortured and mutilated and scarred by his human captors and experimented on. And then you really can't blame the dude for, I call him a dude, he's an ape, but you really can't blame him for feeling the way he feels. He doesn't trust anything. He doesn't trust anyone. He's so burned by human society that he's got no use for him. And
well, and he's not necessarily wrong too, because while there were good humans, and I loved the reboot kind of trilogy to show you how it really happened, you know, that leads you into Heston's Planet of the Apes stories. But you know, you come across it's like, you know, the last one they did, Woody Harrelson's character, the Colonel. Of course, you want to see them dead, okay? Or even Gary Oldman too, who just wouldn't trust anything, and you understand why he won't trust apes, because a virus, his wife died, he's trying to save, you know, the remnants of society, and he just can't reach across the aisle and work with these people. So, I mean, that's an interesting take. I haven't watched those in a while. I need to actually go back and watch those films, because I mean, for kind of a reboot and give you a prequel series on Planet of the Apes, they were very, very well done. So
yeah, it's one of my favorite little series of the last decade. I thought it was just absolutely brilliant what they did with
all
it.
right, speaking of Gary Oldman, and because I think he plays a lot of sympathetic villains, is Zorg from Fifth Element really a villain?
Yes, but he's not sympathetic.
No, he's just an asshole.
You're a monster. You're a monster, Zorg. I know.
I mean, at least he knows what he is.
Yeah. It's like, what I like is a killer, a real dyed in the wool killer. How does it go? He goes, precise, cunning, straight up killer. Now, a real killer would have asked me what the little red button was for.
Oh, he's so brilliant in that movie. Hey, I don't even consider his in Air Force One. I'm like, is it? I mean, you kind of understand his plight as the Russian, you know, terrorist hijacking the president's plane. I kind of get it. You have to die. Yeah, you have to die in that movie. But I mean, for your own like little revolution and stuff, that's, you know, I get it. So
now,
anyway.
you want to talk about his best villain, though, is probably the cop in The Professional.
Professional, yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So, all right, Alex, one more sympathetic villain for you.
Another one that I think is a really good example, and I think it's especially interesting because of the depths of what this character does throughout the story. But in Red Dragon, Ralph Fiennes as Francis Dollarhide.
Ooh, good one.
It's the things that he does are just atrocious. I mean, right on down to what he does to the reporter. It's like he does some really grisly activities, and yet as you start to uncover the abuse that he went through growing up from his grandmother, and you kind of even see Edward Norton's character feel sympathetic for him toward the end of the story as well. So I'll tell you another one, though, that I think could have potential to be a sympathetic villain if it's done right is Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. And I'm kind of curious to see in the upcoming movie, because if you look at the original film, there's really not a lot of depth in that character, but you do kind of see where it's like
at the end, though, where Liu Kang tells
what he's doing because he doesn't have an identity, he doesn't have a soul of his own. So
Right.
he's doing all these things because he's just looking for an identity. And you hear, you know, Liu Kang say, "I pity you," and he kind of breaks down and gets upset for him saying that. But it would be interesting to see if there's more depth to that in the upcoming movie, perhaps.
Yeah. You know, when we talk about sympathetic villains, I mean, you know, we're really talking about their motives, why they're doing what they're doing. They may go about it the wrong way. It got me kind of thinking about the Die Hard movies. And Hans, it isn't really clear in the first Die Hard movie what he's really trying to do. He's just trying to steal money and coming up with a clever way of doing it. Okay. But his brother in Die Hard 3, I kind of have sympathy for him, because all he wants to do is get away from his government, tired of his country, and just wants to steal money to buy an island and set up his own government in his own country with his own beliefs. And it's like, okay, I can kind of sympathize with that. I mean, you have to die because you are blowing up New York. But at the same time, it's like, we're just going to steal gold and we're going to set up our own country. We don't like what they're doing. And that's kind of how I feel about like people in the U.S., especially like the extreme right and even sometimes, the extreme left. Like, if you hate it so much and you can't compromise and it has to absolutely be your way, get the fuck out and go start your own society somewhere.
Well, and you got all these Hollywood types that do that all the time. They say, if so-and-so wins, I'm leaving. Yet none of them ever do.
None of them ever do.
It's like, I mean, I think the only one that actually did was Johnny Depp, and he went to France. So kudos to him for having the courage of his convictions. But,
right.
I mean, and then unfortunately, he had the sad unfortune of marrying Amber Heard. But, I mean, yeah, just like, seriously, like, if you're going to be so wacky, just leave, go away. Like, if you hate everybody else so much that doesn't identify with you, you've kind of missed the whole point of the melting pot.
Yeah. Or compromise. Compromise is what makes a great society, and that is the genius of the U.S.
And Marcus and I have talked about this at great length over the years. Some of the best times in our economy have been when you've had neither party had control, right? And they were forced to work together. Like you had Clinton working with Newt Gingrich in the 90s. You had Reagan working with Tip O'Neill in the 80s. They didn't like each other, but they worked together and they got shit done. You know? Now it's just all this partisan nonsense. It's like, whatever. But this is turning into a political show now. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to do that.
But I mean, all I'm saying is, you look at these characters that want to start their own society and want to build something. I'm okay with that. Go do what you want to do. It's like,
just don't blow up everybody else on the way out.
Right.
It's kind of like Frank Hummel in The Rock, Ed Harris's character in The Rock. But look what he was doing. What he was doing, he was trying to get the money to compensate the families of the soldiers that had died because they never got from their government.
I think.
Yeah, Chad, you just literally stole my.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That movie was on the other day, and I thought, he really is a great sympathetic villain.
He really is. He really is.
Yeah, if you're a veteran, or support the military, how do you not support what he's trying to do? Is he going about it the wrong way? Yes. Was he not going to really go through it? Yes.
Also,
he hired the wrong guys that were nowhere near as altruistic as he was. Yeah.
Right.
Then also, from that movie, by the way, one of the guys at Coronado just going to give Michael Biehn an honorary trident.
No shit.
I mean, how many times has that dude played a SEAL? Like, he's played. Let's see, there was the Abyss, Navy SEALs, The Rock. I think he's done it like 2 or 3 other times too.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think we just need to give that dude an honorary trident and call it a day.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Then again, I've probably got Navy SEALs going, dude, we don't do that. I'm like, all right, back off, chill. I'm not saying everyone.
I always see him as Ringo, though. That's always been my favorite of his. So.
Which one?
Ringo.
Yeah.
Johnny Ringo.
Topic,
Look, darling.
Yeah.
Now,
that's Latin, darling. Apparently, Johnny's an educated man. Now I'm sure of it. I really hate him.
Oh, I really hate him.
I hate him.
Yeah, I watched The Rock not too long ago, which is probably still my favorite Michael Bay film. And
on that, I really can't.
I'm just kind of like, yeah, I really feel for the guy, and I agree with he's basically holding the government hostage to pay out pension or widow funds to soldiers that they can't acknowledge for the dirty wars that they do, and that's crap. But I will give you one sympathetic villain, and I'm going to quickly turn it to our last thing that we're going to talk about. Movie is 10 years old. I'm not ashamed to say that I shed a tear at the very end of this movie every time I watch it. I love Warrior with Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah.
And it's basically the MMA of it's like the Rocky of MMA. And you basically have these two brothers who were apart, who end up facing each other in, the big Spartan MMA tournament. Tom Hardy has kind of looked at the villain He's mean, doesn't do press interviews, like one punch, I walk out of the cage, and you kind of like, I don't really like this guy. He's not a fan favorite, but you root for the other guy, Joel Egerton's character more, because this is a guy that had to help pay the bills is doing like backyard, or backroom bar brawls and winning, but you can't do that as a school teacher. So he gets suspended. So he somehow gets into a tournament, and when he should get his ass beat by everybody, is better grappler and all that, it ends up winning to face all the brothers. But you get this really great kind of family story of them coming back to each other and stuff. And I looked at Tom Hardy's character. It's like, this guy's not a villain. He shouldn't be considered the villain in this film. This is a guy whose best friend in the Marines got killed, and he's trying to win money for the widow, by going AWOL and, reconnecting with an alcoholic father. And it's just a fantastic film. And yeah, I watch it about once a year. And like I said, I'm not ashamed to say, it's one of those movies that will make me cry. Just the way that film ends with the two brothers, walking into the locker room together. So that's my other kind of sympathetic villain. But I want to turn it real quick before we end to, we're not doing a review. We're not, because the series isn't done yet. But talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Is everybody caught up with episode 4? Has everybody watched that?
Not yet, no.
No.
Okay.
I was going to get to it today, but.
Yeah, okay. I won't completely spoil, but I will ask this. I will ask this question based off the other episodes. Von Zero. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Baron Zemo?
Yes, Baron Zemo. Thank you. Oh. With what they're doing, and they in the third episode they break him out of prison and all that. Do you really consider this guy a villain, or could he be a sympathetic villain? Because they talk about him as a means to an end.
Yeah, I mean, he is to an extent, because he's just pissed at the destruction that superheroes and supervillains have caused. So he's just anti-powers because of all the collateral damage and what it's cost him personally.
Right.
Because he lost his family, when the Avengers fought Ultron at Sokovia. He sees that as the Avengers, had to, Avengers created that whole mess quite literally because of their hubris, specifically Stark and Banner. So, he, in a sense, he is a sympathetic villain. He also is a lot cooler in this show than the current Captain America.
Which ain't hard at all.
Because he's written, he's supposed to be that way, because John Walker in this character arc he's supposed to be a guy who cracks under the pressure of becoming Captain America, because nobody who knew Steve sees him as Captain America. He just yes, the government gave Steve Rogers that title and they gave him the super serum, but Steve Rogers made the title mean something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, he turned it into a symbol. He turned it into something more than himself. So this guy just got it, and he's running around introducing himself as Captain America. And so everybody that knew Steve's are like, yeah, slow your roll, boss.
Not so much, dude. Not so much.
So and of course, when he fails, he lashes out in anger because he's struggling to live up to this ghost, this myth. And so, I think he's going to be a very tragic character for a time. Now, eventually, John Walker, if they follow the comics, which they seemingly are doing fairly closely, John Walker will get redeemed to become U.S. agent. Although I'm guessing they'll change the name for the TV, because U.S. agent's kind of like, really.
Yeah,
a little too on the nose.
A little bit. So my guess is they'll change that. But I think that he's actually going to become they might even turn him villain for a little bit, and he might be a more sympathetic villain just because why he went kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But yeah, John Walker's just.
I kind of feel bad for Wyatt Russell, the actor. It's like you're getting to be like a superhero, but everybody hates you.
Well, yeah, he's the Joffrey Baratheon of the Marvel universe right now, because everybody hates him, but everybody's supposed to hate him. Yeah. You're supposed to not like John Walker because you want Sam to get over his shit and pick up the shield.
Right. But in real life too, it's like I can't imagine like walking up to him now. You're not Captain America. You're just bad. It's like
my favorite is how he looks like the dude from Up in the suit.
Yes.
Like they put the suit on the guy from Up, and it's like
dead on from his big reveal at the end of episode 1. You're like, holy shit.
Right. Well, it's funny to hear like stories like that. It's like, getting on, chastising an actor for playing a villain. It's like, he's an actor. That doesn't mean he's that in real life. Jack Gleason, who played Joffrey on Game of Thrones, is literally one of the nicest people you will ever meet. And when he quit acting and went back to school. Law school. And I love the stories about him when he does go to conventions and the pictures that he takes with people. It's like, don't think that they are that in real life. But yeah, you just our friend Colin, who texted me from time to time, was like, what's up with this guy trying to be Captain America? Don't you just want to slap the shit out of him? Yeah, you're supposed to, because he's not Steve.
Which, by the way, there's a very interesting fan theory about this character too. He looks very different from picture to picture and from episode to episode. And there's a theory that that it's part of the secret invasion and he's actually a Skrull.
Oh,
because they're moving towards the secret invasion storyline.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, and now that they're doing, it's not like the Netflix shows, which are really detached from they only tangentially mention the movies. These shows are directly affecting the movies going forward. Like supposedly the events of WandaVision will have consequences in Doctor Strange too. So with the secret invasion storyline becoming, people are thinking this might be the first kind of little nugget of that, and that John Walker might actually be a Skrull.
That would be an interesting storyline.
And even if it's not, the writers are going, hey, sometimes the fans come up with some good shit.
We actually brought up the point in the Loki trailer when they show that cat. I'm like, is that a cat or is that a flirkin?
And that's an interesting thing, that he may end up being the more sympathetic villain. I think it's true. If you just really look at what Steve Rogers was, Steve Rogers always had those abilities. I mean, he was already that man of honor, always trying to do the right thing. The super serum didn't change that.
No.
Okay? Didn't make him into that. It's those qualities, and that's why that they wanted in a soldier, and that's why he was, chosen.
Yeah, it's like cocaine. It just makes you more of what you already are. If you're a good guy, it makes you a better good guy. If you're an asshole, it makes you a bigger asshole.
Right. So but I always loved Tommy Lee Jones in the first Captain America movie. Anytime he does something right, like when he falls on the grenade, it's like he's still too skinny.
He can't do shit right.
Right. My favorite line really is when they're speeding up to catch up to the plane, and he kisses Peggy, and then just has that kind of look at Tommy Lee Jones. I ain't kissing you.
I need to watch that again. I really do need to watch that again.
Yeah, we all pretty much agree, because Brendan and I, before that nerd show even started, and our buddy Adam, we went to one afternoon to go drink beer and see this movie. I ended up having free movie tickets for something. I don't remember what, but we were like, yeah, this really good movie, and beer in the afternoon. But that goddamn long scene of them just singing the same song over and over.
Oh yeah, that could have been cut to half the length and had a better effect. Like,
right. I just remember people, if you need to take a bathroom break during this movie,
this is the time. Because it's going to be about 15 minutes and nothing but song and dance numbers with Captain America, and you're going to be sitting there going, "What the fuck is this nonsense?"
It's like this dance scene in Spider-Man 3, just like. Ugh.
Well,
Why'd you have to bring that up?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
really.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Because you know what it reminded me of? So here, right, so America gets this super soldier, right? Could change the outcome of the war, and they're afraid to lose him and use him, turn him into a symbol. I'm sorry, I don't remember the Americans adopting German naval tactics, because that's what they, after they lost the Bismarck, that's what they did with the Tirpitz, and they kept the Tirpitz in harbor. So it's like, yeah, why? This isn't American thinking. If you've got a gun, you use it. That's
Yeah,
American thinking.
Well,
that's just common sense in warfare.
Yeah.
I think this is a topic that'll definitely be revisited because there's definitely more sympathetic villains in the nerd universe. We've only kind of hit the surface of a lot of things, but it'll be interesting to see what'll happen with this series. And after episode 4, the Carly character, you're starting to feel, while they're trying to portray her as a villain, you're understanding what she's trying to do and based on the decisions, how she's going about it may be wrong, but you understand where she's coming from. So she's not, and I like the fact that they're setting it up that she's not like a, complete psychopath or anything like that. But so, all right, we'll be reviewing this series once it's done in a few weeks, on top of other things that we'll be doing. The other
And
series,
Bad Batch.
and the Bad Batch. We're very excited about that. That just looks awful.
That's and let me tell you something. The more they release about it, the more my instincts were dead on the moment they released the first trailer. They're basically going to be the A-team of the Star Wars universe.
And I'm all for it.
And this time they actually hit shit. A-team I love the A-team, but the television in the 80s, you couldn't actually show somebody dying on screen. So here you got a special forces team, some of the best marksmen in the world. They fire 4,000 rounds an episode. Nobody ever gets hit. People just put down their weapons and say, I give up.
Well, they definitely rectified that with the A-team movie, which I'm still sad they didn't get a sequel to that, because that was just a fun movie.
It was.
Isn't that kind of like in the G.I. Joe cartoons, and they always show the pilots getting out of the plane, like right as they blow up, they always eject.
Yeah, it's like my favorite line in the A-team movie is, what is he doing? He's flying the tank.
I just love when they had to bring BA back to the helicopter. Look, I know you guys are airborne rangers, but that was just crazy. Oh, yeah.
Freaking Murdoch hanging on the propellers, singing "Right, spin me right round, baby."
Wait, did you ask for a thunderbolt? No, I didn't ask. Oh, no, that's actually one of my favorite Bradley Cooper movies. I'm like, he was really just so perfect for face. And I love the scene too, where he's walking past Dirk Benedict. Dirk Benedict's going to use the tanning bed that he got smuggled into the prison. So anyway, all right. Another series that we wanted to quickly mention and check out. I know Alex is paying attention to this. Hopefully he has started. But Mighty Ducks Game Changers. If you are a Mighty Ducks fan of those movies, you need to be watching this series. They're about 3 episodes in. It's pretty good so far. One thing that I have definitely, I was kidding around with our writer Julie Jones. Her and I are the big Aaron Sorkin fans on the staff, but Emilio Estevez is about the same age doing this series that Martin Sheen was, his dad, when he started The West Wing in 1999. And there are moments where he literally sounds exactly like Martin Sheen in the way he does his jokes and delivery. And it was just really kind of scary. It's like, wow. But anyway, check that out. That's a fun series. And Alex I'll have a review of that when it wraps up in May. So we've got one other thing I want to quickly address. From a gaming standpoint, while we don't often comment on rumors, this is a rumor that I think should be true, and I wanted to comment on. It is rumored that we are getting a new Star Wars game later this year, and it is going to be a Star Wars Bounty Hunter game, updated for the new consoles in an open world where you're basically playing Boba Fett and other Mandalorians.
I know it was confirmed that we're getting a shooter Star Wars game this year, so that would tie into that.
Yeah. So if that's true, and we hope it is, thank you. Because that, after The Mandalorian and being able to dive into the underworlds of the Star Wars universe, that sounds like an amazing game, unless you screw it up.
One quick bit of nerd news. So Star Trek Discovery released their season 4 uniforms, and the red ones, yeah. Can I get some fries with that? Because it looks like a McDonald's uniform, and the best line I saw about it was, "Welcome to the 32nd century. The ice cream machine is still broken." I can't take credit for that line, but my God, it made me laugh.
You know, well, if we're talking about Star Trek, I want to mention two things before we wrap it up. If you have not seen the teaser trailer for Star Trek Picard season 2,
I can't wait for it. Yes.
No. All I have to say, we'll give you a little bit of a spoiler. It was also a little bit confirmed of a returning character, or a beloved returning character, and kind of rumored, but I think the teaser trailer did justice, as it was doing all of its scenes faded to a playing card of a queen, and then all you saw in the very last scene was Q, and then John Delancey's voiceover.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Red
That's
alert.
Yeah, I know.
The best opening to a Star Trek episode ever. Naked John Delancey hanging in the air. Red alert.
You know,
what do I have to do to convince you I'm human? Die. Oh, thanks, Worf. Eat any good books lately?
You know, as much as I loved him in Next Generation, I think my favorite episodes is when he gets he gets trapped in the simulation machine with Janeway and the Civil War drama in Voyager. That just always made me laugh.
I always liked it. I always liked it when Cisco slugged him, and he goes, "You hit me. Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard."
Well, I don't know what to say about Discovery anymore. I mean, I kind of liked the idea of going to the 32nd century, but it just, I feel like the only thing you've really delivered with Discovery, and I'll watch it, but it doesn't live up to the other series that we've had in the past. Season 2 really is just always going to be the best, because you had Pike and Spock, and
we're getting Strange New Worlds next year, and I'm happy with that.
I know. So I'm like, I could care less about Discovery now. Nothing against the actors or anything, and what they're trying to do, but it's just like, can I get back to the Star Trek that I really want?
Well, when they cried for 6 episodes straight in season 3, I just got like, it's not objectively bad. It's just boring. Like, I got bored with it, and at the time, The Mandalorian was also out, and a couple of other things were out, and I was just like, I just got too much other stuff I want to watch, and I never went back and finished it.
Yeah. It just, I agree with you. It just, compared to other things that are out there, all I have to say is 2022 is going to be great for Star Trek. We get Strange New Worlds in season 2 of Picard. So I'm going to be happy. All right. We're going to wrap this up. We will be back next week. If you have sympathetic villains that we have forgotten to mention, you can always tweet at us on Twitter at That Nerd Show, or you can always send us an email at editor@thatnerdshow.com. We'd love to hear your choices, because we know we've only scratched the surface when it comes to this, so it may be a topic that we revisit. So, but one last thing, Zachary Avery, you are a sympathetic villain in our book, so kudos to you.
I'm frankly a tad jealous. I didn't think of it first.
I know, really.
The only thing I would have done differently is
the coffee with bacon stirring. I think it's $1 million idea potentially.
Well, we'll run with that. You and I will go with that. But I'm just saying, the only thing I would have done different than old Zachary was once I hit about 150 million, my ass would have been gone to a non-extradition country. Been living on the beach in Belize or something.
Who's first in line for the Zachary Allen is my homeboy t-shirts?
Zachary, yeah.
Zachary Avery funded my movie.
Zachary Avery busted it out.
Zachary Avery funded my movie. That's what we should do. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I would wear
all right,
that shirt. I would rock that shirt.
Absolutely. You may be going to jail, but we'll at least buy you a beer on your way to jail.
Yes, sir.
You deserve a beer for what you did. Oh, I mean, you also realize too that what he did to get all that money is just as good as the dumbass who conned his way into buying the Islanders back in the 90s and almost bought the Stars.
Oh God.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, everybody, we're gonna wrap this up. Have a great nerd weekend, and as I mentioned at the beginning, starting tomorrow, you'll be able to get free digital downloads of our magazine issues. Just go to thatnerdshow.com and you can find the page for magazine issues, and you'll be able to download them. But our new one will come out next week, or will be coming out tomorrow for the weeks of April 11th and April 18th. And definitely check out the article by Chloe James and Cleric Ambrosio about the 18 great shows that will make you an anime fan. So, and a bunch of other editorials that we have written, including reviews on some potential Oscar contenders that we'll see if they win on April 25th. So, all right, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.